This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Sarah, we are this morning talking about a subject that I'm afraid is more dear to all of our hearts than ever. And I wouldn't even say it's dear to our hearts. It's something that causes us a great, great deal of frustration. We're going to be talking about healthy anger this morning. Our listeners need to know that the voice you're hearing is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley, the voice of Respectonomics, and you, Sarah, are the co-host. And to you, I will say cosmopolitanly and democratically, because who knows when you're going to listen to this. The answer is, though, to you, Sarah, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining.
We're going to be talking about anger. And I think it's almost a self-evident truth that anger is very prevalent in the world today. And you see it in newscasts, you see it in politicians, you see it in people at the gas pump. You see anger everywhere. And the snag is, the biggest snag I believe is, that anger is an enabling, what would you call it, an enabling attitude. It's an enabling influence. And, you know, I don't know if you've had that ever conversation, Sarah. You say to somebody, I am so angry about something. And the response you get is, you're angry. Let me tell you what I'm angry about. And before you know it, you're into this fabulous vortex and everybody is fuming and smoke's coming out of our ears. And
stories, who's bigger than the others.
Yeah. Very, very, no, it's awful. So, but I want to start off with the expression that we've started with it is because it's a little bit of a buzzword, and that is healthy anger. And in actual fact, I don't think there's such a thing. People will say, oh, yes, I have a right to be angry about something. And I'm just going to use a horrible example of child abuse. That's something that really, really gets under your proverbial skin, makes you very, very angry. The problem is, when we say healthy anger, we say, well, I'm entitled to be angry about that. I come back with, and Respectonomics comes back with, the true dignity of that anger is when, in fact, we do something about it. So sitting and fuming at my desk is in actual fact an exercise in self-pity, an exercise in deprecating myself and so on. But it doesn't actually help the situation. Recognizing it is great. Seeing it as whether it's a symptom or a problem, as the case may be. So whether you're talking about fear or slavery or any of those horrible things, the fact of the matter is whatever anger we have, if we're going to express that anger, the expression needs to be in the form of action. That, I think, defines healthy anger. There's action within it and beyond it. Is that fair?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about anger, though, in the more general sense, because there is so much of it around. And I want to give you a couple of insights into it. And the first one is, now this one, you know how you love rolling your eyes on a Monday morning, and you do it better than anybody else I know. Okay, here we go. Because the word anger is from the Latin, Latin, Latin. Yes? Come on, say something agreeable.
Yes, I understand how to spell Latin.
All right, okay. It's Latin, and the word is angulo, which means to strangle.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Exactly. And that's what anger does. It's very strangling. It cuts off your sort of supply of oxygen. It kind of constrains you. It's not actually a useful action. I mean, if you took yourself to some sort of physiotherapist or something, they would say anger is doing this and this and this to your body. So I think we can start off by agreeing anger's not a good thing. The world is...
Sorry. That people want to feel angry. It doesn't, right?
Yeah. Anger is a form of self-entitlement because what it amounts to is I have a right to be angry. Now, we've just said that healthy anger means you're going to take action. But just to sit and say, I have a right to be angry, is not really a very satisfactory solution. And a lot of the anger that we express something comes your way and you get angry, I get angry. It's often because in actual fact, we are not at peace with ourselves. If you're at peace with yourself, it is remarkable how many things can come along that are, shall we say, obstructive, in your way, impediment. You have to wait an extra turn at the traffic lights, or you can't get into the grocery store because they just closed. And those are the kinds of things. When you're at peace with yourself, there's far more likelihood of a shrug of the shoulders. Oh
Mhm.
dear. Okay. Well, another day, another time. That kind of attitude. So I think the first thing we have to do, and Respectonomics is very, very emphatic about this, that when we talk about dignity, the first point of reference is the dignity of oneself. It's very hard to get these things better in our lives if we don't have the self-dignity or the self-respect. And I want to talk about one technique, because what I've just said is, I would say, is borderline, should we call it obvious? Meaning, if you feel good about yourself, you're likely to be good to somebody else. I think that's a reasonable equation.
You're likely less inclined to react in that
Exactly.
moment.
Yeah. Life becomes more of a giggle. There's more humor in it and so on. I think there's one technique that we should all practice. And I do it, by the way. So this is authentic. And that is the business of exhaling.
Mm.
You've heard it. I've heard it. I don't know how many times somebody's fuming and you say, take a deep breath. Have you ever heard that expression?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And in actual fact, it's probably the worst thing you can do, because if you're a runner and you like your aerobics and all that stuff, don't you? I mean,
I
you do
yeah,
yoga and all those things. Yeah.
don't
No?
really too
No.
yoga's too slow for me,
Oh,
terribly.
okay. Well, I'm much more into the physicality of aerobic exercise and so on. And exhaling has one enormous advantage. If you're running and you want to run faster, one of the ways to do it is to exhale very intentionally. And
Hmm.
the reason for that is because when you exhale, you dissipate the stale air in your lungs. And at the same time, by doing that, your next reflex action is to take in a deep breath. So you're
Fresh
not
air.
taking exactly fresh air, and you're not taking in the deep breath. I mean, you are, but your bodily system is doing it. So exhaling for your body is a very, very powerful technique. So
Right.
I think we'd all agree, oh, okay, that makes sense. Exhale. Do it 2 or 3
Good.
times.
As my computer was giving me trouble this morning as we were signing on.
Yeah, exactly. Exhale rather than inhaling. If you inhale, I mean, frankly, not to get too metaphorical about it, but one of the problems with breathing in when you say take a deep breath is you breathe in more of the problem. It doesn't actually dissipate it. So
Mhm.
in the body, you exhale. And we
Right.
apply the same thing to the mind. You see, the problem is that we in today's world, we are being attacked at every juncture. You and I were talking earlier about how we feel like you're being asked to do 19 things in 18 minutes.
Right.
All of us, we've all got this sense there's all this sort of these bees flying around our heads telling us what we ought to be doing and where we ought to be going. And it's very overwhelming. And
Well, and
one,
I find sorry, Jeremy, I was just going to say that, because there's so much of that in the world, I find that people, and this is an aside as well, but it just shows the impact that it's having, is it impacts our sleep because many people are
yeah,
waking up thinking about those 19
right,
things that you do in
right,
18 that
yeah,
next day thing
right,
when you first wake up,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It looms over us.
Right. But exhaling can be used on the mind very effectively. And what you do is in your head, you've just said you wake up with these, 10 thoughts of things that are wrong or have to be done or whatever. It's a fascinating exercise that you take whatever the problem is that you just immediately thought about. So this is very instantaneous, very spontaneous. And you take that thought. Let's say you're worried about a relationship with one of your coworkers, just as example. Most of us can go along with that one.
Right.
Yeah. You
Well,
take you take that visual, if you will, of that individual and you exhale. You literally exhale it out of your mind. Then you go to the next problem. It might be, somebody insulted you at the grocery store. You exhale that one. Exhaling is very important because if you think about it, we societally and humanly spend a lot of time on the whole issue of waste management, which is a euphemism for all kinds of biology, which we don't need to discuss. But have you ever noticed something? When a waste management system blocks up, the whole system blocks up. It's one of the most damaging things you can do. And not only that, it's toxic and frankly, it puts people into a sort of almost a paralytic state. They can't move. So the exhaling is just taking the problem, or a symptom, it doesn't really matter, and just exhale it. But you have to concentrate on the problem. You actually have to look at it and say, my problem is a relationship with John or Sally or whatever it is, and you just literally exhale it. So that way you're cleaning out your mind. So you've done two things so far. You've cleaned out your body, you've exhaled, you've cleaned out your mind. So and the key behind that is you give yourself a clean slate.
Right.
How can we possibly tackle any of these issues that confront us, like your computer this morning? How can we deal with those things if we don't have a clear mind? Because
Right.
one of the problems is, have you noticed when you've got a problem in front of you, first thing you do is you think of three other problems. And then you
Right.
can't remember which one you're meant to be focusing on. Well, bingo. So, as I say, exhale. And the last one is respectonomics has this abiding principle. It's an absolute, I think it's the key, the idiom, the logo to what we do. And that is to understand that this human body, frail as it might be and all that good stuff, it is still made up of three parts. Love it or leave it. There's the body, which is what's doing the yapping at the moment. The mind, which is the one that processes. And there's the soul, which is that inner reservoir or inner identity that is within each and every one of us. And you've heard that expression, he's an angry soul or she's an angry soul.
Yeah.
Their soul is so stormy. It's very valuable to be able to look at oneself. You can't do it in the mirror because, just like your mind, you can't actually see this inner core value, identity. But what you can do is look at it and see if there are winds and storms blowing across it. Because if they are, what a fine time to exhale the soul as well and to allow the stuff that's impinging on the very inner parts of our being very privately. You would never tell anybody what you're talking about. This is you, this is me. But you exhale it and let it out. And that means your reservoir is now refilling and it gets nice fresh water in it and so on. And it can be available to meet all the conditions in our lives. So that's the basic principle of exhaling. So I think we need to look at anger as being, first of all, a proxy on one's lack of peace with oneself. And to be at peace with oneself, the first thing you do is to recognize the incredible capacity that each and every one has. Respectonomics is always talking about the worth of the human being. And the worth we're talking about is the self-worth. And we all need to be in front of that mirror, whether you call it a physical mirror or whether you look at it as metaphorically. But we need to understand the value that you and I bring to the table is a total expression. It's a proxy on the worth of the human being. We are worth everything that we are. We're
If you
extraordinary.
and if you in sort of along the lines of exactly what you're saying in terms of when you have that moment of frustration or anger, I think there's a fine line between frustration and anger.
Yeah, yeah,
Two
yeah,
separate things. But if we're
yeah,
looking at anger, it's I think also it's an awareness of that you're having that feeling.
yeah,
So having the thoughtfulness or the mindfulness to go, oh, that's very angry.
yeah,
Why am I
y-
angry?
eh,
What is it about that is making me feel that angry? So it's okay to feel it.
yeah.
Like I think it's okay to feel
Ah,
emotion and feel that anger,
mhm,
but it's having the awareness to go, wait a minute, why did I have that
yeah,
anger? Why did
right, hmm,
the case
right,
is and backpedal it and ask
yeah,
why and why
yeah,
and why. Each question
exactly,
help
yeah,
determine the the root of that as
Hmm.
well.
Well, I think you're right. I think you're taking off the onion skins all the time. And the very fact that you're allowing yourself to examine the causes of one's anger, the sort of the atmosphere behind it, in itself is very cathartic and very healthy.
I
So,
don't think enough people take the time to do that or have the thought process to do that, if that makes sense.
Respectonomics 101.
Mhm.
Absolutely right. One of the things you and I have noticed is the number of times we put these thoughts out in front of people. They're not original. They're not new. They're not
Right.
revolutionary. They're absolutely right in front of us. The human being is symbolic of dignity. Anything that we do that depreciates that dignity is, in fact, not useful. It reduces our potential. It reduces our value, in fact. So, rebuilding ourselves up, being aware, as you say, that awareness is just huge. And one of the problems is in the world we live in today, you're constantly under this gun. And I'll give you two examples of being under the gun. One of them is Facebook. And I don't know if you've noticed, but next time you screen on Facebook, you'll notice that everybody's got a happy smile. You notice that? Everybody's got a martini, everybody's on the beach, everybody's just had a fabulous wedding, everybody's just had a birthday. It's all fabulous stuff. You do not see on Facebook people shriveling in tears or in pain or anything. You might get some history stuff, but I'm talking about, all of your friends and everything. They always put on pictures of, here I am in my boat fishing. Or
Or you
whatever.
look at Instagram, right? Social any type of social media, it's always presenting a vision that I think creates a lot of you look at it and say, I've actually even listened to, sorry, jumping, but people looking at their overall feed. So
Mhm.
where you all the posts
Yeah.
on the Instagram, they actually strategically post based on so that aesthetically, if somebody were to look at that entire lot of posts, that it's aesthetically pleasing,
Yeah.
made accurate or a correct depiction of what's actually, as you said, going on
Yeah.
in somebody's life. We're
Yeah.
only presenting
Yeah.
certain aspect of it.
Well, you see, that aspect is where we get into crumbly territory. And everyone needs to go back to their Facebook and recognize two things. Number one, generally speaking, the photographs you're looking at, the pictures you're looking at, I'm not going to call them fibs. I'm not going to call them hypocrisy. I'm just going to say they're good camouflage because underneath those photographs, there's all the turmoil that all of us experience. So
Right.
it's almost like it's a fib it's too strong to call it a lie, but it doesn't, as it were, tell the truth
May not always be a true depiction.
of,
Well,
yeah, of what is really going on. And the other problem is that if you are having, let's just say, an unhappy time, and you see the smiley photograph, quite frankly, what it does is it pushes you down. It
Mhm.
doesn't raise you up.
Right.
So this is the problem today that we're encountering is we keep getting the happy smiles, which either aren't, should we say, telling the truth, or in fact, they're making us wanting to go backwards and hide underneath the blankets.
Right.
So we've got that. Now there's another thing going on. In the world of advertising, if you look at any advertisement, have you noticed, let's say it's a hamburger or a car, doesn't really matter, but whatever it is, those ads are all designed to say, you are not living a satisfactory life. What you have got is insufficient. What you have got is not enough. So
Mm.
you're being put in this place of, gosh, I really don't have enough. And you're turning that into, therefore, I need more. And the advertiser says, and we've got more for you.
Right.
That's the ploy. The problem is that, in fact, if you get into that, if you surrender to that, the truth of the matter is, why is it that you go and satisfy that need with a hamburger, and yet your state of mind hasn't changed one little bit? You're still angry, you're still, put out and frustrated and all that stuff. So back we go to the advantages of being at peace with oneself, number
Right.
one. Number two, understanding that the advertiser, the social media, plays on one principle of the human weakness, which is envy.
Mhm.
Envy is a nasty, nasty animal because it says, I need to have a Rolls Royce today. And you don't, but you
Right.
get yourself into this sense that I'm envious of and therefore I need it. And the problem with envy is that, in fact, it is very toxic. It's contagious. It has a great deal of self justification to it. It has a sense of, if I want it, I should have it, becomes a sort of a right. And I'm going to give you one more Latin quotation. And I promise you this is the last one today. I promise you.
Never mind the Latin, Jeremy. It's educational.
Ew. Okay. Well, Horace, the Roman poet, wrote, Sonavi apud meum, which translates to, I had supper at my table, meaning the simplest things in life are where, in fact, if you think about your own history and biography, it's the simplest things in life that have given you, me, the greatest pleasure. So it's worth taking envy and looking at it. We keep talking about awareness, but understanding the nature of envy and how it can infiltrate and influence our lives. And it creates a lot of anger.
So, I mean, I know you talked, in, like, the boat in terms of the exhale.
Hmm.
What are some other, strategies or tools or resources that we can use to assist in addressing or managing our anger, and how can respectonomics like, how does respectonomics
Well,
come into play?
I think you and I, Sarah, will agree that one of the things is this whole business of the awareness of one's own body, an
Yes.
awareness of one's tremendous worth. And we need to I mean, do you know one thing? In so many places where you are today working, with all these computers and AI and all this other stuff, how many of us get treated as dumb terminals? It
Mm,
happens quite a lot. And all I'm asking people to do, and Respectonomics is putting on the table, is whoa, let's put the dignity back on the table. So that's the awareness issue. To answer your point, having one's own self dignity back is very important. I think it's vital.
right.
Next thing is, how do you do that? I think that's your question. I mean, as long as we agree with how we get angry, why it's something we should stop doing, what are the reasons for it? Now you're saying, Jeremy, yeah, but what do we actually do about it? What is the
Right.
next step?
Yes.
And I think the next steps are as follows. First of all, journaling, which means writing down what's happened today, what you felt about what you did today, is one of the most useful tools there is. When you write, your brain will, and here it is, the brain will often reveal things to your soul that your soul never could see. It's one of the most powerful tools available to us. And you come out with thoughts and ideas you never even knew were within you. So writing in itself is very healthy. Just the activity, not using a keyboard, but the
Yes,
actual
it's
a good
hard for
fountain pen. Not
Japanese
well, this isn't a fountain pen, but no, wait a minute. I tell you what, these are the best pens of all. These are
respect and
the Respectonomics pens. But writing is very powerful. What did I do today? And what did I feel about what I did today? And you'll often find that the things that you did today that you thought were going to be tiresome or whatever actually gave you the greatest pleasure.
Mm,
So it's a very good technique. As a matter of fact, it has been said that journaling will turn us into guided missiles. And I think
mm,
there's some truth to that because it reveals what the reason for that is because it reveals your potential to you.
mm.
And now you
Well
have a mechanism to say, wow, aren't I wonderful? I'm going to do something with it and about it. So
it's
journaling,
the moment for reflection,
yeah,
right? And
it is.
see from
Well, you're reflecting, but you're doing it in a very pragmatic way and a constructive manner. I can't overemphasize the reason for journaling. Then it leads to another area, which is called counterblocking. Counterblocking is a very useful exercise. You can do one. I'll give you an example. This morning you were frustrated with your computer, yes? Yep. So what you do is you get out a piece of paper and you write down at the top of the piece of paper in your English, nobody else's, you write down, I am ticked off with my computer. True?
through.
And you might even use bigger words than that, but we're far too polite.
I may have.
Your mother would not approve, let's say that. So you write down, but this is very important. You do write down, I am whatever it is with my computer. And the
Right.
reason you do that is how often do we go through with anger that we can't actually express? You know that thing when you've probably, I don't know if you've had this, I have, when you're so angry, you say, I'm so angry, I can't do something, I can't do anything. This actually you can do. I am so ticked off with my computer, number one. Then what you do is write down 25 reasons why that particular thought is irrational or unproductive.
Mm.
So the first one might be, well, actually, it's only a dumb computer. Why is it bothering me? Secondly, I can you go and borrow another computer. And you go on and on like this with these reasons why that particular thought is irrational. And the fascinating thing is this: when you get down to reason number 25, that's when you really find out what the core of the matter is. It
The
allows you to, I'm sorry?
fine tuning.
Yeah, well, it allows you to dig deep and fine tune. So that's the second thing. The other thing we talked about is inner peace. Inner peace is something that is absolutely worth going for. If we, as as human beings, you know how we, at Christmas time, we send out all these messages saying peace be to everybody. And you know, in our younger days, we went around in peace marches and all that kind of stuff. We all believe in peace. It's productive, it's collaborative, it reflects the real purpose of a human being one to another, that we collaborate and work together.
Right.
And whatever technique people want to use, but just being aware of inner peace is one of the finest jewels that any of us can have, because when we have that inner peace, that is precisely what we project to other people. And how valuable is that in a world
Right.
that, as we've said already, is full of anger and spite and contempt and all that stuff?
We can remain calm and we demonstrate the inner peace there that can perhaps flow
Right.
to somebody.
Yeah. And, you know, one day somebody will say to you, you're very quiet about this. You're very calm. What's your reason? Here you have it. You can say, well, these are some of the things I do. You're not, you said something earlier about, you know, the frustration that gets to you. The truth of the matter is we do get angry. Of
Mhm.
course we do. Things that obstruct our road and whatever the road might be. I don't mean just on a highway, but when you feel you want to do something and an obstruction comes up, it is frustrating. And it's all part of our sense of entitlement and sense of immediacy and I'm more important and all that stuff. But the truth of the matter is that if we have that inner peace, we have a far greater capacity to look at those impediments as stepping stones, not things that are actually in our way, but rather things that actually help us in one shape or form. The other thing I want to talk about is therapy, because I think the world today it's a complex world. Let's be straightforward about that. There's numerous things going on. We get information far too quickly. We're required to give answers that we haven't really thought out. You know, I need an answer now kind of attitude.
Sense of immediacy
The
in the world.
immediacy, which is very, very, it's exhausting. By the way, one thing about anger is in fact a depletion. It's a negative. It actually draws energy out of you.
Absolutely.
So even if you had no other reason for bringing it under control or under influence, that alone would say, you know, when somebody says, I'm exhausted, well, if you've been angry all day, guess what? A lot of that energy went out with that. Yeah.
People will refer.
Yeah. And I think one of the things is in the area of social, but in the area of therapy, many of us talk about, you know, going to a massage specialist or a chiropractor or something. And the answer is the same thing applies to us at what you might call at the brain level. Having said the brain level, a therapist will work with the brain. Other kinds of therapists work with the soul. But whatever it is, we need to be encouraging one another to take advantage of therapy whenever it's available. And
Resources.
if I was going to make a political statement, I would say I think it's something that governments should encourage from every point of view. whether it's through taxation policy or whatever. But it needs to be something that we all, Bell Canada has this great thing about, mental health. I prefer to call it mental disease, by the way. Mental health has that feeling like, well, it's okay. No, it's not.
Right.
It's a disease, which means that people are ill at ease with themselves, with their bodies and their lives and so on. And we need, therefore, to have the therapists who can help us to guide us out of the box, out of
Provide
it.
us and resources
Hmm.
or to the
Yeah.
forefront with.
Yeah. I think Respectonomics totally believes in that. To sum this all up, I think that anger doesn't, it's a natural phenomenon, but I think we have to be careful not to see it as being healthy unless we're proceeding with action to back it up. I think that we need to look at anger as a dangerous negative, a dangerous draw on our resources. And I think there are techniques to handle it. And as I've said too many times, one of the things about respectonomics is that it reinforces the dignity of the human being and makes us very aware of it. And the last comment is this. If you are in a corporate setup, a business setup, a community setup, whatever it might be, where there are people involved, take a look around you, because what you'll find is anger is very much a depreciation. It takes a lot of the strength out of our day-to-day contact with one another. So from a business point of view, getting anger into its proper context is a valuable asset to any corporation.
And absolutely, and just to clarify as well, when you talk about, having the feelings or the emotions around the anger and then talking about taking that action, we're obviously, or we should clarify that we're talking about appropriate action versus a reaction
Oh,
that
yeah,
in a manner,
yeah,
you know, good to take
yeah,
action as a result of
yeah,
anger, but what
mm,
type of action is it
yeah,
that we're taking,
yeah.
right?
I think I better add one more comment. I should have said this right at the beginning. We're talking about the circumstances, the confluence of things that create anger and so on. And we talked a bit about a therapy and the need for therapy. The answer is a lot of what we've talked about is stuff that we believe that we can look after, but there are people who cannot. And the
Right,
person who cannot does need to go and get that professional technical help. So
right,
this discussion is not intended to be that. It's more to
right,
bring us all to the table and saying, gosh, I may not be very happy with myself today. I may express it inappropriately. Hey, here are some techniques that we can live better with each other.
right, right. Fantastic. Thank you, Jeremy.
I rest my case.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah.